October 1998. A Tuesday evening in the small, forgotten town of Blackwood Creek. The kind of town nestled so deep within the pines of northern Idaho that the outside world rarely bothered to remember it existed. Inside a modest, two-story house on the edge of a winding, unpaved road, the Miller family was having dinner. John, a quiet man who worked at the local lumber mill, sat at the head of the table. Across from him, his wife Sarah, a vibrant woman who taught English at the town's only high school. And between them, their 8-year-old daughter Emily, her blonde pigtails bobbing as she recounted her day at school, a half-eaten plate of spaghetti in front of her. The sounds were ordinary. The clink of forks against ceramic plates, Emily's cheerful chatter, the low hum of the refrigerator, the gentle creak of the old house settling into the cool evening air. Outside, the first whispers of an early autumn chill were settling, carrying the scent of pine needles and damp earth. It was a picture of domestic tranquility, a moment so utterly normal, so unremarkable, that it makes what came next all the more impossible. No one saw them leave. No one heard a car drive away. There were no shouts, no screams, no frantic movements, just the sudden, inexplicable cessation of a family's life, frozen in time around a dinner table. The next morning, Mrs. Albright, their elderly neighbor from 2 houses down, noticed it first. John Miller's pickup truck was still in the driveway, its usual spot, but the kitchen light was still on, casting a faint, anemic glow against the pre-dawn mist that clung to the windows. Odd, she'd murmured to herself as she poured her morning coffee. John was always the first one out, heading to the mill before the sun had fully broken the horizon. Sarah would follow shortly after, taking Emily to school before her own classes began. By noon, the light was still on, and the truck hadn't moved. Mrs. Albright, a woman whose life was built on routine and neighborly observation, felt a prickle of unease. She walked over, a plate of her famous lemon bars in hand, a flimsy excuse to check in. She knocked, once, twice, then again, harder. No answer. She tried the doorknob, locked. She peered through the living room window, cupping her hands against the glass. The house was still, too still. A cold knot formed in her stomach. She called the sheriff. Sheriff Brody arrived within 20 minutes, a man whose career in Blackwood Creek had consisted mostly of impounding stray dogs and breaking up the occasional bar fight. He used a master key, one kept for emergencies in the small, tight-knit community. The scene inside was peculiar. The front door was locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry. Nothing broken, nothing disturbed. Yet, the silence was deafening. He walked into the kitchen, and there it was. The dinner table, still set, 3 plates, John's half-eaten spaghetti, Sarah's nearly full bowl, Emily's plate, with a few strands of pasta clinging to the fork, as if she'd just been about to take another bite. A half-filled glass of milk next to her plate, a half-eaten loaf of garlic bread on a cutting board. The scent of tomato sauce, now cold and cloying, hung in the air. The Millers were gone. Their coats were still hanging by the door, their wallets, Sarah's purse, John's car keys, all on the counter. Emily's backpack was by the sofa, her school books neatly stacked inside. It was as if they had simply stepped away from the table for a moment and then never returned. The immediate search was exhaustive, if ultimately futile. Sheriff Brody called in every available deputy, even pulling volunteers from the Blackwood Creek Fire Department. The small community mobilized, but their efforts were met with only the vast, indifferent silence of the Idaho wilderness. Search dogs were brought in, their keen noses tracking across the Miller property into the dense forest that bordered their backyard. They found nothing. No scent trail leading away from the house. No disturbed earth, no discarded clothing, nothing to indicate a struggle, an abduction, or even a casual stroll into the woods. A helicopter, borrowed from a larger county, flew low over the towering pines, its blades thrumming a desperate song against the morning air. Its thermal cameras scanned the labyrinthine canopy, searching for any sign of human warmth, any break in the monotonous green. It, too, returned empty-handed. Detectives from the state police arrived, their city suits looking out of place amidst the rustic simplicity of Blackwood Creek. They meticulously processed the scene, dusting for fingerprints, bagging every potential piece of evidence. They found only the fingerprints of the Miller family themselves and a few smudges from Mrs. Albright and Sheriff Brody. No ransom notes appeared. No suspicious vehicles were reported in the area around that Tuesday evening. The phone records showed only routine calls. Their bank accounts were untouched. No credit card activity. No sudden withdrawals. No sign of any pre-planned departure. The Miller family had, by all appearances, simply ceased to be. From the middle of their dinner. Then came the details that twisted the knife of mystery deeper. 2 days after the disappearance, a faint whimpering was heard from the Miller home. A deputy, making a routine check, investigated. He found Buster, the Miller family's golden retriever, locked in the laundry room, off the kitchen. He was dehydrated and terrified, but otherwise unharmed. Why was Buster locked away? The Millers never confined him like that. He was a beloved family member, usually free to roam the house and yard. And then there was the answering machine. The state detectives, in their careful examination, listened to every message, mostly hang-ups and telemarketing calls. But on one particular message, recorded just before the time they estimated the family vanished, there was something else. Not a voice, not a sound, just static. A low, almost imperceptible hiss, like radio interference. It lasted only a few seconds, then abruptly cut off. Perhaps the most unsettling discovery was made in Emily's bedroom. On her unmade bed, amidst a scattering of school papers, lay a single drawing. Crayon on construction paper. It depicted 3 stick figures, a tall one, a slightly shorter one, and a small one with pigtails, holding hands. But instead of standing on solid ground, they were walking into a swirling vortex of black and deep purple, a void that seemed to consume the edges of the page. Emily was a cheerful child, her drawings usually vibrant with suns and flowers. This was different, ominous. The locals, of course, had their own explanations. Whispers of the Blackwood Creek woods, old tales passed down through generations, stories of the creeping mist that stole travelers, of shadow folk who walked between the trees after dark, luring the unwary into places from which they never returned. Sheriff Brody, a practical man, dismissed these as folklore, the products of an isolated community's imagination. But even he couldn't deny the unsettling nature of the void the Millers had left behind. The theories, in the absence of any concrete evidence, became as numerous and varied as the people who offered them. The conventional explanations were quickly exhausted. Abduction, no signs of struggle, no forced entry, no ransom demand, and leaving all personal effects behind made no sense. Voluntary disappearance, again, highly improbable. No financial troubles, no known enemies, no family disputes. Why leave everything? Why leave the dinner half-eaten, the house locked from the inside? Why abandon their beloved dog? Some speculated about a sudden, unforeseen medical emergency, a gas leak perhaps, or carbon monoxide poisoning. But medical examiners found no trace of such an event in the house, and Buster, though frightened, was physically unharmed. If a gas leak affected the family, why not the dog who was also in the house? And where were the bodies? As the months turned into years, and the case grew colder, the more outlandish theories gained traction. A sudden, simultaneous onset of shared psychosis, causing them to wander into the woods. Unlikely for a whole family. A secret government experiment, a clandestine abduction by unknown forces. Pure speculation, born of desperation. The most unsettling theory, whispered only in the darkest corners of Blackwood Creek, was that the Millers had somehow stepped out of this reality. that the swirling void in Emily's drawing was not a figment of childish imagination, but a premonition, a window into something beyond human comprehension that had reached into their ordinary kitchen and simply plucked them away. Today, the Miller house still stands on the edge of Blackwood Creek, weather-beaten and silent, a monument to an absence. The windows, once bright with the light of a family, are now dark, like empty eyes staring out at the unchanging woods. Locals avoid it, crossing the street, unwilling to even glance at the place where an ordinary Tuesday evening dinner became the threshold to an enduring enigma. Sheriff Brody, now long retired, still keeps a worn file labeled Miller Family in his study. He revisits it often, poring over the reports, searching for a forgotten detail, a missed clue. But there is nothing new, only the same perplexing facts, the same chilling lack of answers. No trace of John, Sarah, or Emily Miller has ever been found. No body, no grave, no explanation. Only the cold, persistent question echoing through the pines of Blackwood Creek. What happened to the Millers? What took them from their dinner table, leaving behind only the ghost of a meal and an unfillable void? The silence, like the forest, continues to hold its secrets close. And sometimes, on a quiet evening, when the mist rolls in thick from the woods, some say you can almost hear the faint clink of forks, the echo of a child's laughter, before it too vanishes into the deep, dark night.